My name is Mark Holleran. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Central Arizona Shelter Services.
My name is Michael.
And Lanisha. We're residents at Vista Colina.
Darlene Newsom, I work at UMOM New Day Center.
Central Arizona Shelter Services, CAS, is the state's largest provider of emergency shelter and supportive services to homeless men, women, and children.
Well, the services and support that we received here has been very beneficial for our family. We came from loss of employment from my husband, loss of our housing, and we resided in our vehicle.
We have 112 families that live on our campus, and we provide short-term emergency shelter, which is up to 120 days, and transitional shelter, which is up to 2 years.
Most of the people we serve have not really been in a position to ever own a house. They've never accessed that part of the American dream. But they are affected by the fact that construction jobs went away, that restaurants are closing down, that hotels are not expanding anymore. And so a lot of the people we serve are in the service side of our local economy, and when those contracted, they lost their jobs immediately.
He came to Vista Colina because we had ran out of funds and our children weren't in school, so they helped us to just get over the hump of living out there and not being sure where to even park our car and be safe.
In the last 6 months, our waiting list has doubled to 90 families. The wait time to come into one of our units here at the facility is about 6 to 7 weeks.
We're seeing more elderly, we're seeing more disabled, we're seeing more women, we're seeing more single women with children, we're seeing more veterans.
These services are very vital to everyday living for a family, for an individual. If you are not having these needs met, you cannot stay a family unit. Yeah, I mean, there's some separation that's going to happen. Your children are going to be out there on the street your children look to you to protect them and provide for them. And if you can't provide for yourself, you can't provide for your children.
It's hard to identify homeless families because you don't necessarily see homeless families on the street. Many families double and triple up with other families in apartments. So most of the time they move from place to place to place. On an average, a homeless family moves 5.7 times in a year, which means the longest they've been anywhere is 70 days. And you can imagine the impact that has on children.
Anecdotally, what we're seeing is more women showing up at our shelter saying, I've turned my children over to Child Protective Services, I don't know what else to do, here I am, help me. And that is an absolute horrible scenario to create.
The services here has helped us to stay a unit and be able to take care of our children and not have to do take means in the wrong way of providing food for our children. And my husband has sought and received employment, which helps me to be able to look for employment myself. We no longer are as stressed as we were before, living outside of our vehicles.
Most of the time when we talk to families after they get into our services, one of the first responses that they give me and others in the program is that UMOM can change your life. And UMOM has changed their lives. And without UMOM, they don't know where they would be with their children. And most of the time they say they would be on the streets.
You know, in the state of Arizona right now, we are very concerned about the state budget and its effect directly on us, and even notwithstanding any cuts to us directly, there is this support network out there that prevents a lot of people ultimately from knocking on our door asking for service. Well, you start taking those supports away, then that will open up the doors for a lot of other people coming and saying, we need help, can you help us out? And we may start seeing people we've never ever seen before.
If the funding for these programs are cut, then there's less families having self-sufficiency. which leads to more welfare, more families on welfare, and less people paying taxes, which is very important.
You know, one of the things that I don't understand is that in the United States of America, how can we have children living on the streets? And to me, there's no good answer for that. And that homelessness is something that exists here in Phoenix and in every community, and it's not something that we can put up with. It's something that we have to deal with. And it's going to take a little bit of government, it's going to take a little bit of the faith community, and a little bit of the private community to be able to impact homelessness. It's just not one person's responsibility, it's all our responsibility.
If you don't fund us, that doesn't mean the problem goes away. What happens is those situations get incredibly aggravated, and then all of a sudden there's police involved. Or people end up in the ER of a hospital. And what happens is then our community uses the most expensive response effort that it has available to it in the most ineffective way possible. And then when you're talking just economics, you say, my God, that doesn't make sense.
You know, we get a lot of questions about how does somebody end up homeless. And if you take a single mom with 2 children who makes minimum wage to rent an apartment in Phoenix for her family, she would have to work 120 hours a week at minimum wage to afford an average rent apartment here in Phoenix. So you look at that and you have a parent who's working 1, maybe 2 jobs, and 75% of their income is going towards rent. That leaves very little to pay for any type of child care expenses, medical expenses, and food.
Right now, my family's on the road to being self-sufficient, and without the services that we have received, I truly do not know what we would have done and what road we would have took. Without these services, I cannot even imagine gaining employment, feeding my family, and how can you gain anything when these needs are not being met? So I think it's very important that this continue.
I've always felt, and the Human Services Camp is a perfect example of this, it is never an issue of money. It is an issue of will. And when there is the political will, and then perhaps even more importantly, when there is the community will, when people will pick up their phones and call and say, this has got to stop. This is so important, you can't go down that path. And people can do that. I mean, I think people underestimate the power that they have to say, pick up the phone, and they don't have to know any of the legislators or the city council members or anything. You pick up the phone, or now you've got an email, or you can even write a letter. But I know they all look at that, and you can make a difference. And United Way certainly can play a role and bring multiple people to say, as a community, this is absolutely, we cut off here. After this, no. This is about basic human dignity, basic human respect, and it can make things happen.